Hello, and first of all, welcome to a new video. Today I'm going to be sewing a dress inspired by the spring equinox, and I'm really excited to share it with you. This project has been a while in the making, but there have been various influences which I'm gonna just explain briefly. Initially, I started with the idea of making a fantasy dress. So as a book lover, fantasy is one of my favourite genres, and basically anything magical or supernatural goes. So the first step for me was to do some design sketches. I based all of these fantasy designs on the flora and fauna of Costa Rica. So for example, this dress was inspired by the plumeria flower, and this dress was inspired by the flowery build arcari. Next, I chose my favourite sketch to bring to life, and it was this green dress, which is heavily inspired by the lianas, epiphytes, strangleroots, and moss, which can be found on many rainforest trees here. At this point, as if by magical coincidence, it was actually the 20th of March, and I realised that that day was the spring equinox. This is a time of year when the days and nights are of equal length, and in pagan times the equinox was celebrated by planting new seeds in the garden, worshipping Ostara, who is the Germanic goddess of the spring and the dawn. So on top of the fantasy and the jungle inspiration, I introduced some flowers and other blossoming plants to the design sketch and ended up with this final piece. So just a disclaimer, but this wasn't made entirely from scratch. I did this for the purpose of upcycling old fabric, as there's currently a huge issue with the amount of waste generated by the textile industry. However, I did use some scrap fabric, which I also found at the charity shop, so this is where I started, and I had basically a square of green fabric, which I hemmed to create the skirt panel. I used uneven slip stitch to create a double hem, and you can see that this is how it looked when I draped it. This green top was another piece which I was using, and I removed the front pocket because I just wanted it to be one smooth piece. Next, I tacked the two pieces together. So this is just a word for very loose stitching to check how it would hang. So although it worked as a skirt, I still wanted to add something more because it looked a bit plain and it looked a bit like just two pieces of fabric sewn together. So I thought I would incorporate some more shades of green. I actually used the fabric from an old top and I cut this into strips to create a tassel effect. And then I pinned this tassel around the waistband because firstly it covered the line of stitching, and secondly I thought it worked here because it works with the kind of darker colour of the top part of the dress. Next, I cut some pieces from another scrap fabric panel, and these were kind of glittery green and purple. I thought they would look really good as almost like leaves at the bottom of the skirt, so I pinned each little leaf shape in place. And then I hand sewed these around the hem of the skirt. This took a very long time because it was all hand sewing, but I was really happy with how it looked at the end. So after I made the dress, the next thing I did was make a little cape to go over the top of it because I wanted to create something that looked like the tendrils of vines or leaves down the sleeves. I started with this thrifted velvet dress, which I cut down the middle to create like an open garment. And then I cut up more of the stretchy green fabric to make the tassels. I pinned these in place, this is what it looked like, and then I stitched these under the arm seam. After that, I removed the bottom half of the dress top, and I used this to make the hood of the cape. I folded the fabric in two and cut a curved edge, and then I stitched this by hand and finished it using blanket stitch. The last thing left to do was pin this to the neck edge of the dress, and then I finished the rest of the seams using hand stitching.